Find a photo of something you want. Don't be afraid to take your photo, such as this one. Has great lighting, but if you zoom in, sometimes it's going to be easier to shade that image. So don't be afraid to zoom in on anything that you want to be able to draw, such as the tail to a car. You can make some really wild and modern abstract paintings. Now, a lot of people love to draw pets, and they're very, and humans, and you don't want to be overwhelmed by trying to draw a whole funny scene. So what you can do is keep it simple. So find a photo that you want to draw. This has him alone. I'm going to crop it. Now when I crop it, I don't want it to be a square. I still want it to be the same rectangle-ish that my paper would have. Okay? And then that's what I'm going to draw from. But instead of cropping, I don't want to crop my original photo. This could even be fun. You also want to make sure that you're editing, so I can't really see a lot of the detail in his face there. So I'm going to monkey with the highlights, monkey with the shadows, and get it so where I can see his face. I can actually see his face a little bit better there. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go with this image. Turn it the same direction as my paper. Okay. Now you want to turn it the same direction of your paper, and you want to keep it close. Now, if I want to use this for gridding, there is an app that is called Grid. Okay, and what's cool about Grid is it can help me divide my paper into 4 sections, or my image, because if you're working off your phone, you really don't have your photo to divide up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to divide my paper into the same amount of boxes that I have on my grid. I tend to like 4x4s because I can find the halfway mark on my paper, and then half of a half, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. And I'm going to do 4 rows. So I'm going to find the middle of my rows. That's half. And I'm going to divide this half into halves. Half of a half. Okay. So I get 4 columns and 4 rows, which is great because that's going to help me block in my little dog here. Okay. All right. Now, first thing you're going to do for your ABCs is adjust your photo. Don't be afraid to grid, zoom, adjust your contrast so you can see what you're doing. Now the next thing I'm going to do is try to block them in. So I want to try to get his cookie cutter shape going on. I can see his head is up here, up into ABs, right? It says A, B, C, D, which is nice. It really labels everything for you. So right around B mark, I'm going to start to block stuff in. You can block stuff in with contour, such as I'm doing now. This takes up the whole side for his ear. All right. Just trying to get my basic shapes in. As you can see, gridding is a great way to go. Now, do not rush to details. You get your detail right, guess what? You're probably not going to erase it when you find out it's in the wrong spot. You're just going to let it all look weird, okay? So this is me trying to block in my shapes. I'm actually really not even contour drawing. Kind of ridiculous, but okay. I'm going to go around here. I can see a tip of the eyes. Now here's my little trick. It goes from this little intersection to almost this little intersection. That's the tip of his eyes. I'm looking to see this area right here. His ear is going to come way down here. Just trying to draw it small, so I came from the opposite way. This is about halfway into the square. Yep, that seems about right. The eye is going to be there, and then this one is just shy of the crosshair. So that is where his eyes are. His nose, not quite in the center of this block. His nose is here. Now I see his face as kind of a triangle, so I'm going to try to draw this weird sort of triangle, paying attention to my grid. As you can see, I'm fighting against my natural instincts to get it to be what I think it looks like instead of what's actually there. Okay, blocking stuff in. Seeing the outside of his head. Trying to use the grid to help a little bit. Now, I'm going to go back in. So this is blocking. Okay, the nose is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to start with the nose. And now I'm going to start to go in and edit. So what's great is this is kind of the framework. This is where I know that my drawing is going to be. And now what I'm going to do is start to just make my lines just a little heavier. Oh my goodness, I keep bumping that button. Okay, now the beautiful thing is when it does come time for shading and whatnot, the grid is great because I can zoom in. This is the cube that has my nose on it. So if I'm really struggling, I can look at this one little section and get it down, which makes it better than a photo because photos have a tendency of just laying the ink out, and they don't, they're not always see-through. Where you have light coming through this image, you don't, when you print it out, it's with a solid ink, okay? I'm careful to match the angles that I have going on. Okay, that's an area of shading I want to make note of. This is an area of shading I'm going to make note of, just really light. Now I don't want to finish this area off too much because if I do, if something else is off, I won't be willing to erase it. I'll want to keep it, okay? And I don't want to leave a ton of marks, so draw light. So I'm seeing this right here. I'm trying to see this bigger shape. Do the bigger shapes first. Now I'm doing a contour drawing, trying to get the eye crosses a little bit over the line here, as well as dipping below. And now I can use my grid to kind of help me out. Okay, I'm just going to block it in. It's giving me trouble. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I see a black shape that comes across here, cuts off the corner of my square. And this is midway. I see a little detail. I'm going to grab it. I see a little back fat coming around. I'm going to grab it. Okay. And I'm just going to continue these lines around. Okay. Let's see, what did I miss? This is face. All right, so I think you kind of get the idea of going in and drawing with the contour. I could even go in here and add the little spikes that I see. All right, so block it in. So this is what the eye looked like. This is what it's starting to look like. So now I'm starting to add in those lovely contours. Now you can see why it was important for me to correct my picture. Even with the camera, this looks really dark. But luckily for me, it doesn't. I can still see some lines. If I can't see it, what I need to go back is, I don't think I can adjust the image at this point. No, I cannot. Okay. So I would have to go back to the original image and adjust it and then come back to this, and that's just not going to be, that's not making my life good. So the other thing I can do is go into my camera and make sure that my settings, I'm going to turn my brightness all the way up and see if that helps. Okay, and it did a little, but you really want to make sure that you got the, yes, I can start to see that dark area. It's not just an area now. So you really want to be careful that you're adjusting those shapes. All right, so I know right where I am. I'm using my grid, getting a feel for my line, block it in. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of block this. I see a weird shape here, weird shape here. Get a feel for the angles. Okay. All right, so I think you got the gist of it. All right, so ABCs. Adjust your image. Don't be afraid to zoom in, to crop it so you don't have as much going on, because you want to be able to spend a good, you want to have a good large area so that you can shade and be able to see what you're doing. If it's too big of an image, you're not going to see that. Right? Okay? Give it a shot. Choose your image, adjust it, block in your areas using a grid, and then turn it into a contour drawing by drawing it a block at a time and zooming in as you go.